We get it almost every night.
Woo!
When that moon gets so big and bright, it's supernatural delight.
Good morning, everyone.
Dancing in the moonlight.
Good morning, guys. Welcome. We're just gonna do like a minute of dancing, and then we'll start talking. They don't bite, they keep things loose, they keep things alive. Everybody was dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. Good morning. Thank you all for joining. Here, let me see all of you. Nice. It's good to see you guys. And then you have the fight. I'm going to turn this off. I am going to turn this off. And I'm going to take a look at you guys. Good morning. I'm so happy to see you all. Good morning. Wow. Thank you guys all for being here. I'm so happy. Lowell and Candy in California, thank you so much for joining this morning, all of you. And Bobby Horowitz, Michael Adler, Arnie, my man. I got all these people, and then there's surprises. Adam's here. I know there are some people hiding their faces, which is fine. You know, anyone who wants to not hide there, it's early in the morning, and that's great. So anyway, welcome again. Thank you. And of course, Mom is here, and Mac at Kettle Space. Thank you for joining and for being here. So I just want, for those of you who have been here before, you might notice that my background is a little different, right? Normally it's my art wall and my stove behind me. And here I'm in this very elegant setting. I'm actually upstate. I'm in this beautiful place. I'm in rehab, and that's okay. You know, but anyway, no, I'm not in rehab, but I love the song. You know, this song, my daddy told me to go to rehab. And I said, no, I love that song. The thing is, I would have said, yes, you know, like bring me to rehab. And the sad thing, and she died, unfortunately, probably because she didn't go to rehab. But anyway, you guys are familiar with that woman, Newhouse is her name. Anyway, so I'm in rehab. I mean, I'm not in rehab, but I would definitely go to rehab. And I encourage everyone, if they're given the choice, go to rehab. But anyway, I'm not, instead, I'm actually at a dear family friend, a home in upstate New York, and it's beautiful, as you can see, just the background. So it's really special to be here. And you know, it's a kind of surprise little vacation. And otherwise, I've been in the city the whole time, you know, since the beginning of Corona, with the exception of a 3-night getaway, a romantic getaway that I had actually with my mother. Yeah, really lovely. And anyway, yeah, feel free to join. And so I feel like I kind of bonded with our guest this morning because he made fun of me about that. He told me that he would rather get COVID than go on a getaway with his mother. And then he asked me how Camp Mommy was. So anyway, I thought that was funny.
Nice.
But he's not on the show because I thought that was funny. It wasn't funny enough. No, it was very funny. I enjoyed it. But anyway, he's on the show because he created this really remarkable comedy show that was that it was the first of its kind, and I think still the only of its kind in the New York area. I could be wrong, but anyway, it's called Laugh In at the Bel Air, and he opened it just weeks after Corona hit New York in March. He didn't open it in March, but oh, hey Heather, good morning, good morning. Anyway, so he opened it shortly after Corona started in the parking lot of a diner of a diner in Queens. And again, it's called Laugh In at the Bel Air Diner. It's fantastic. When I heard about it, I was like, I need to do that. Like, this is on my bucket list. I want to perform for Cars. And I'm not even kidding. Like, I just thought that would be awesome. So thankfully, he was kind enough. He got us on. We went. The Cars drove away, but at least maybe one or two stayed. And no, it was really a lot of fun. And he's been doing this now for 6 months. In fact, he just produced a special there where he shot, which I want to hear more about. So before I continue, I just want to welcome, he's a fantastic comedian, podcaster, and producer. Please welcome Jay Nog.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Todd. This is awesome. I'm looking at the view of the room. I feel like I'm in a town hall meeting right now, and everyone's about to complain about we need more speed bumps. And
Well,
I appreciate everyone joining.
Thank you, Jay.
I'm
And
trying
thank
to
you all for being
take
here.
my health care.
So anyway, so what the first question is, and also the concept that I kind of, as I promoted this show, I was talking about the idea of creativity and perseverance during the pandemic. So if you could tell us first, like how this came about, like why did you create this? How did you create it? And in a drive-in, and in a parking lot, would you tell us?
Sure. I came home from my last headlining gig in Michigan the weekend of like March 14th. And I got home that Sunday, and my wife was concerned. My son's high risk. So my wife was very concerned about me going. I was flying with the mask, had the gloves on. It was when we were all introduced to gloves and masks and disinfecting and washing the hands 100 times a day and all that stuff. And the shows were all social distance. There was a light turnout. And I get home, had a few shows, and my wife said, you know what, can you stay home from the show tonight? It's getting bad out there. And then all the shows were canceled. Everything was just getting canceled. And we were on lockdown. And during the lockdown, I did a newlywed game. I did a green room Zoom where comics hang out. I did podcasts, Zoom shows. I was losing my mind because I wasn't getting on stage. Zoom shows weren't doing it for me. And one night I'm online and I saw they were doing a rave in Europe at a drive-in. And I was like, oh, if they could do a rave at a drive-in in Europe, why can we do a comedy show? Right as I saw that, I emailed about a dozen drive-in theaters within 90 miles. And I emailed them asking if anyone would like to do comedy. And then the next day I saw online that Bel Air Diner was doing movies. I reached out to them and I said, how would you like to do a comedy show? And we ended up started to do, I think it was a 6 o'clock show on Tuesdays. Then it turned into an 8 o'clock show on Tuesdays. Then it turned into 2 shows on Friday night. Then it turned into 1 show on Friday night. Then it turned into a show on Saturday. The schedule, I mean, you're dealing with a diner, so they're not the best comedy bookers. So the schedule kept changing around. And then they were just cars for the first few shows, which was strange and weird because you couldn't hear laughs. And it was almost like a Zoom show. Then we started to have outdoor seating and people were sitting outdoors, social distance, which is strange too because some people were wearing the masks, so you couldn't really tell. People were laughing unless their shoulders jiggled. And then I created this new room for New York City, and comics started coming down, and we've had you guys came down and hosted a show. We've had Rich Voss, we've had Mark Norman, we've had Dave Attell, I think, is going to do one of the next few shows, and it looks like it's coming to an end, I think, at the end of this month. Because it's getting cold, but who knows? I mean, if people are still going to brave and come out in their cars and we have comics to perform for it, I mean, I'm down to still do it, but I knew it was getting close, and I taped the special there this past weekend. And I was nervous about that because usually you have friends and family and fans come out, but in this pandemic, you can't get a babysitter. You depend. Everyone's dealing with COVID differently. Some people are extra cautious. Some people are eating COVID for dinner. So it really just depends on how everyone's dealing with it. But I had about 30 people sitting outside, which was a nice crowd. And we had about 15, 20 cars pull up. And from what I hear, the special came out good, so I'm excited to see the footage, and we've been documenting everything from the beginning since our show was the first show since when the quarantine ended. We were the first comedy show in New York City, and I think the only consistent show in the city of cars and people that I know of. And so we've been doing that steady weekly, and documenting, interviewing comics, interviewing audience members, documenting all the shows. So
yeah, I remember. Yeah, you interviewed us.
Yep.
And I think after. So you're real. I see. Or is the idea that you might want to take this and kind of pitch it somewhere? So,
we're going to create I'm going to create a docu special, which I'm going to document the whole journey from me coming home from my last gig, losing my mind, trying to come up with a venue and a show. We actually did a show at a real drive-in theater, which was a train wreck. It was awful. I didn't realize that you can't see the people when it's really dark. It's not like a parking lot where you have lights and stuff. And we had lights on us, and we had moths and flies flying in our face. And the drive-in had usually 100 cars every single night. And for some reason that night there were 11. So it was a epic failure, but a learning experience, and definitely good footage for the film. So we're doing a docu special, which I'm going to show the documentary footage from creating the room and what comics think about it and the journey we went on for the room. And then throughout, I'm going to show clips of the special, interview with me, interview with my wife, and make it a personal journey. And I don't think anything's been done like this. So taking a risk, rolling the dice. Why not? It's a pandemic.
I got a guest here then. I'm so excited to have you. Speaking of the journey, or are there any, I mean, there are enough challenges. Just Adam and I used to produce our own show in a norm inside. And there are enough challenges of producing a regular show. What were some kind of unique and or unexpected challenges that you faced in producing this show?
Oh man, getting the time right. Tuesdays at 6, there was a lot of traffic going by, and then the nighttime there was less traffic, but you would have people just, loud motorcycles just interrupting a joke. You would have the ice cream man interrupting a joke. You would have cars just blasting their sound systems. And then towards the end, there was a restaurant across the way in the parking lot, and they would have this Latino crooner playing the guitar and singing to literally about 12 people right in front of his face, but they had to have like a giant sound system that bled into our show. And I went over there a few times and asked them nicely, and then we kind of got into like a war with them where I went over there, asked them nicely, and then I kept turning down the volume on their speaker. And then they came over with like a translator from the restaurant because the manager didn't speak English, and their guy's all mad and he's yelling at me, and they're all comics around, and they're like, I saw you turn the volume down. And I'm like, I didn't turn it down. I was admiring you guys got some good equipment over there, really good sound system. And he's like, no, my coworker saw you turn it down. And I'm like, no, let's just coexist. Turn your music down. We're in the same parking lot. And then he walks away, and the comic's like, did you turn it down? I'm like, yeah, I turned it down twice. This guy's an asshole. So they were trying to sabotage the show a little bit. We got into a giant argument with them. So that was, then we moved the show. They had the guitarist Friday. Once we moved the shows to Saturday, that wasn't a problem. But just motorcycles, you have the delivery men from the diner who drive scooters. And when they pull out, you hear them beeping and the alarms going off. And you're in the middle of Astoria trying to do a comedy show. So it's, you never know what's going to come up.
It was actually a really terrible experience for me, but I'm kidding. As a comedian, I'm joking. It was wonderful. I enjoyed performing to the cars more than the people, because I saw people smiling in the cars, believe it or not, and then they honked sometimes. It was really cool. I also admired a little detail, and maybe you had more of them that I didn't notice. You gave us all to be, COVID extra safe. You gave us little covers to put on the mics, our own foam covers.
That's right. I invested in mic covers for everyone. You want to do it safe. You want people, like I said before, everyone deals with COVID differently. Some people wouldn't do the show at the beginning and then finally came down. Some people were like, I'm not performing for cars. Some comics like, I just want to get up in front of people. So everyone is dealing with this differently. I know some comics who are just doing Zoom shows and haven't been on an outdoor stage or anything yet. That's not the case for me. Like when I didn't have stand-up, I was losing my mind. So I feel any way to get in front of people. And then you got to think of the other way around. A lot of comics are thinking of a very selfish way, me, where comedy is a relationship. So maybe in this relationship, when people are in cars, you're not hearing the laughs, which we are used to and which we, used for our timing. We use for our self-esteem. We use for a lot of things, the laughs. And when you weren't hearing it, you just have to adapt. I mean, there are comedy shows in laundromats. There are comedy shows in bar basements. There are comedy shows now in parking lots, rooftops, parks, basketball courts, everywhere. I feel always comics have been a creature to adapt. We've always adapted because we want to get on stage to Zoom shows. So we are a breed of entertainers who constantly have to adapt. And I think we're doing a great job of it. And this is not going to last forever, and this will end soon. But this is going to be something where years from now, hopefully there aren't many pandemics, but people are going to look back at it and be like, yeah, remember you started comedy 2 months before the pandemic, and do you remember the Bel Air show that you had, and remember we were performing on top of a rooftop and freezing our ass off in November? I mean, people are going to keep doing outdoor shows until we can't, and that's just the way comedians are. I feel like we're the strongest performers and entertainers, especially mentally, because I feel we go through so much for such little validation, and it's really a career where you have to push yourself. And, you know, like I haven't caught many breaks. I mean, I've had a couple of shows. I've been on TV a few times, and I've had a show here and a show there, and I've, able to make a living and travel around the country, but no one knows my name. And you just have to keep right. But what I'm saying is that you have to keep pushing yourself. This is not a career where, it's the Babe Ruth go right to the top right away. Everyone else has to grind for years. I mean, Ronnie Dangerfield grinded for 20, 30 years, took 5, 8 years off, and then came back, and look where he was. So and he blew up in his 50s. So comedy's a weird thing now where, there could be some pandemic people. My co-host for my podcast, he really JL Colvin. He has a Trump impression. If you're out there on the internet, his Trump video went 7-8 million hits or something like that, and he blew up during the pandemic. And it's funny because he always says that he's like a bad luck charm. And of course, Sarah Cooper. So there are people who have gone and gotten notoriety through the pandemic. So it's not all bad here, but it's definitely something different.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So I haven't even had to ask questions really. You're just things. And what you're saying is that comedians in particular, I think all artists, but maybe comedians in particular, at least you, are very entrepreneurial, because you did this all on your own. You saw an opportunity and you've kind of persisted. And it hasn't been all smooth, I imagine, as you've even mentioned.
No. I mean,
one question about how has marketing been different, and if it has been different?
You're writing on your flyer, drive-in or outdoor seating, social distance. Like that's something you're not used to writing on a flyer. Some people, like I said before, are nervous to come out. Like when people roll up in cars, comics want people sitting outside, and you invite people in cars to sit outside, and once in a while someone comes outside and sits there, but some people are like, no, I'm good here in my car. Yeah. So, and you can't, usually when you have if you're doing a bar show and like you have 10 people there and 8 of them are sitting in the back, yes, and to move up, and it's not a big deal to move up, but here, to get out of your car and sit outside, you're taking people out of their comfort zone, and they won't be good audience members if they're thinking about catching COVID the whole time anyway. It's just, it's weird times, and hopefully these times pass. But I mean, I've done this. I've never had a manager. I've never had an agent. I've gotten everything in my career on my own, for a show on Sirius to writing on Guy Code on MTV to, playing Vegas and, headlining all over the country, everything, college agent. I've done everything on my own. So in this game you see some people here and some people there, but everyone has a different route there, which is crazy. And some people have rep, which is great, and have people in their corner working for them. But I think what's taught me to work so hard is I've never had anyone in my corner, except comics helping me. So when this came into my hands, I said, no one's going to help me out. I'm going to have to make this room something successful, or we're going to lose it. And it's a room not just for me, it's a room for all comics to get up. I mean, I've had people do this show who haven't been on stage in 6 months, and I said, you know what? In the last 6 months, I've been so depressed. This has been like my one bright spot, the last 10 minutes on stage. And that's really nice to hear, where you're spreading love. You're making, comics enjoy themselves, and they're getting up on stage and doing what they love. And audience members who are used to going to see live entertainment don't get that anymore. So to come out and see a show, audiences are appreciative. So I mean, it's cool in that respect.
Absolutely. And honestly, what you said is really inspirational to me. And I think everyone else who, I mean, particularly as a comedian, that you haven't had representation. Adam and Adam is actually at work, but he kindly signed in just to create very nice. Anyway, but anyway, we have had representation briefly here and there, but like you said, it's all because, I mean, we have to create everything really for ourselves. And I wish it weren't that way, but it kind of is. Do I not strive for representation because that can make things a lot easier sometimes? I do, but I recognize that, it really lands on our own motivation.
Of course. I mean, they're door openers. It's like when you write a script and then you have to ask a comic friend of yours for a favor. Hey, can you pass this to your agent? Do you know anyone who can read this for me? Those are the annoying times where I've written a few things during this pandemic that I've gotten feedback from comic friends of mine they're like, this is like one of the best things you've written, but to get it to that next person is tough because I don't have an agent or a manager who can hand it over to Netflix, who can hand it over to Amazon or Comedy Central. So you're constantly, and hopefully this project, it would be a great end to this movie where, struggling for the last, 15 plus years in comedy and, finally catch a break during a pandemic where no one's catching a break. I mean, that would be poetic right there. So
I think that would be awesome. And hopefully when that happens, which I think it will, you'll include our bit and our interview. So
for sure. Yeah.
And then, I mean, I feel the same way. Adam and I recently, as a lot of you know, finished creating this series called Going Both Ways. And actually, I feel like during the pandemic has been really exciting for us because we applied to a number of festivals and we got into many of them.
That's awesome. I saw. Congrats.
Thank you, Jay. So there definitely have been bright spots for us during the pandemic. And yours has been one of them and has been inspiring to not only us, but so many comedians. So thank you on behalf of hundreds of comedians, throughout the New York area.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So thank you. So we have we have so much inspiration here already. What I then like to do is turn it over to you guys and pose questions, at least one or two to you. So I think my planned question was something more or less about how, Jay has shown his creativity and his perseverance and entrepreneurial spirit. I guess a question is, during the pandemic, how have you guys, we've all had to adjust. So we've all had to be entrepreneurial in one way or another during this. But would anyone like to share maybe how they've been a little bit entrepreneurial or creative? And I see Heather already waving her hand. Can we hear from Heather? Heather.
Well, I'm so excited to share this with you guys because I don't know, are you on TikTok?
Are you talking to me?
I did a TikTok for a little bit and then it creeped me out because whenever you go on TikTok, you see like 14-year-old girls pop into your feed the whole time. And I was like, this is not an app for me. So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you now so TikTok is making people a lot of money. Mm-hmm. TikTok, the algorithms on TikTok put you out there, unlike Facebook or Instagram, because Facebook and Instagram reward you according to how you engage with other accounts. I went viral on TikTok already. Over 200,000 views for a hair product, and I'm selling it.
Great.
That's
and they
awesome.
have comedians. They have comedians on there that I actually prefer to scroll through my TikTok feed and watch the comedy than going on TV. It's like 1-minute clips, and there are so many funny people out there. It's a great way to showcase your craft.
Great. So you're saying that, and by the way, Heather is not only beautiful, she's hysterical and so charming. And watch her. What is it? It's 56 kicks, right? On.
Oh no, my TikTok is 56.kicks.
Oh, the dot. Okay.
Yeah, the dot. I'm phasing out of Instagram. There's not enough.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Heather, tell us how many followers you have on Instagram. And she's phasing out of Instagram.
Yeah, well, it's dropping. I'm at 36,000 now.
Yeah, so I don't know. I would be phasing out of Instagram if I were.
Well, a little
Yeah.
bit.
You can give them to me, those followers.
But the same, I don't know. I'm just telling you, the exposure that TikTok gives you, it just throws it out there and you can pick. I mean, if you have little girls coming up on your feed, get out of the For You and move to the left where to people that you're following. And then the only thing in your feed will be people you follow, and you can only like just pick comedians to see what's out there. And then there are people that teach you how to make these crazy TikTok videos. I mean, I spent hours on there, and finally I found this woman whose TikTok page is only to teach you how to do those really cool videos.
Thank you.
I don't know what it is now, but I could
Heather,
find it.
I
for
actually
you.
plan to have Heather on a separate interview, Heather, about social media, because she's fantastic on that. But I thank you for sharing. I'd love to hear from anyone else who feels, wants to maybe share a way that they've been perhaps a little entrepreneurial or adjusted, in any capacity during the pandemic.
Michael, tell us about your OnlyFans page. That's a joke that hit only a couple people. All right.
Talking about my OnlyFans. Have you seen it? Thank you for your.
I just picked you as a random person in the room to have the joke for. That's
so actually,
it.
I'm going to turn. Funny you say OnlyFans. I'm a business and real estate attorney, and for those of you who don't know OnlyFans, it's a little off color, but I had a client who was doing a documentary about a bunch of blonde women in Vegas. But then got shut down, and he was managing their OnlyFans page, and it looks like that whole saga is going to get turned into a documentary by some really impressive documentary filmmakers who currently have the #1 documentary film on HBO Max. So it's an exciting time for us to be negotiating this negative story about pivoting during a pandemic related to OnlyFans.com, believe it or not. So
Cool. I'll check that out. Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Anyone else who wants to mention something? Joseph? I think Joseph, by the way, welcome, Joseph. I love Joseph. I think the story of what's going on with Kettle Space, Joseph I love Kettle Space, but I love Joseph in particular. And Joseph works for Kettle Space. And for those of you who don't know, Kettle Space is the platform that I'm on right now. They had been and still are a co-working company where like WeWork, but a kind of somewhat smaller version where you can have wonderful working experiences out of restaurants and other hospitality venues. They shut down almost immediately. And so now they've kind of pivoted into a community for developing work and social relationships. So shoot, I answered your own question. Oh, my own.
We keep on evolving.
So yeah, Joseph, can you tell us a little bit how you guys have pivoted and become even more entrepreneurial?
Sure. So it's resilience, right? You just keep going. You don't let anything keep you down. So pandemic came, we closed down, like you said, actually before the rest of New York, out of abundance of caution, and built this platform, which we're all on now, along with a bunch of other tools and fun things that people can use. But in the last couple of months, we've been helping companies and organizations re-enter their spaces, utilizing our technology to reserve space and track who's coming and going, so that in the eventual, it's going to happen, so there'll be a contact tracing need. All the data is stored, and we have the ability for people to actually reserve. I want seat 1B in the office, and I'm going to be there on Tuesday. And
oh, cool.
So we're working with companies, helping them get back to space, as well as companies that just don't want to go back to their corporate office. They can utilize our spaces now. Again, also reservation-based system and so forth.
Well, and did you say that you've already reopened one spot?
We have one space that's currently opened, and we're working on opening some more.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And well, anyone else? Well, basically, that is, by the way, in this charming house, there is a clock that you just heard that rings on the hour, every hour, all throughout the night as well. So, and by the way, I don't know if they want to introduce themselves, and they do not. They were so kind to join, but well, anyway. Only if they want to, I will allow them to say hello. But I am at this wonderful home of dear friends. I also acknowledge where's I don't want to exactly well, then I'll point them out if it's okay. Paul Brandow and Anne Brandow are my wonderful hosts, along with my mom, who's right there, and we're having a great time. So thank you, guys. Sabrina, I don't know where Sabrina went, but Sabrina is also with us, and I want to give a shout out to her. And
I can't.
are you still there, Sabrina?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I can't
That's okay.
see people right now.
That's okay. Well, we can't see you either, so it goes both ways. Well, anyway, sometimes the show goes a little bit longer, but sometimes the show, ends on the hour. It's typically a half hour, sometimes 40 minutes. Is there anything else that you guys want to kind of talk about with regard to this topic? Because I love what Jay said. Yes, Lowell. I can't hear you.
There we go.
There
we go. I just wanted to mention something that we attended in our neighborhood, which was a variation on some of this. We have neighbors who were about to celebrate their wedding anniversary, and they invited a lot of people on our 1 block street. It's a pretty tight neighborhood, to come and watch a singer guitarist perform from their front deck. Their house sits on the uphill side of our sloped street, and they brought out lawn chairs on either side of the street. People sat on the sidewalks, right in the space cars would be parked on both sides of the street. We left such a narrow space that anyone who was foolish enough to drive up the street would have to slow down to about 3 miles per hour to get through without hitting anybody. And this guy got up there and put on a really professional show. He's part of a band, but he was playing alone, so he was using a looping track to play 2 or 3 guitar parts at once. Quite an impressive performance. And, there were about 50 people.
Cool.
And they put out a hat for donations. And I think he actually did pretty well. The couple were paying him, and people in the neighborhood really appreciated it. It's that kind of hunger for the interaction. We could see each other, everybody was distanced and everything, but he was actually getting some direct feedback to his performance and talking about how important that was for him, because the same thing just with a musician, where he just had not had any reaction from folks. At one point he said he'd gotten hoarse because he hasn't been singing. He plays all the time to keep up his guitar chops, but he hadn't been singing, so he was apologizing for his voice.
And he hadn't worn regular clothes.
Oh, that's the other. Yeah, he hadn't put on a good pair of shoes for 6 months. So he was very eager to have us all notice that his leather shoes had red stitching. That's it.
Thank you, Lowell. And by the way, I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but Lowell and Candy, cousin Candy, who's sitting next to him, they woke up extra early because they're in the San Francisco area. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you who are here. I must also mention that there have been some comedians and other performers who've been quite successful on Zoom. I mean, it was actually Joseph who told me, and I won't reveal names, but Joseph was part of an organization that hired a few comedians to perform for a large group fundraiser. And, I think that they've been making some fair amount of money, via Zoom. They're better. They're
better than fair.
Sorry?
Better than fair money.
Exactly. I didn't want to, better than fair. Exactly. So, I mean, and that was just through a connection, right, Joseph? It's not like they're pretty well-known names, but they're not household names,
Yeah.
right? You hadn't heard of them.
I had heard of them, but yeah,
You
I
had
didn't think they were earning the kind of money they were earning.
So there's also opportunity, and maybe it requires, as Jay was saying, representation. But Jay is a great example of creating something out of nothing without representation. And that really is inspiring to me and Adam and so many. So anyway, you guys are the best. I don't want to abandon you. I'm here to stay. You guys are allowed to go wherever you want. I sometimes put on my closing music, but I do want to allow for Jay, you are officially allowed to leave. You can leave us, but before you do, I want you to mention your upcoming show and anything else that maybe we can, that we can follow or join or attend.
Just follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Jaynog, Jaynog. And if you are in the tri-state area, we have a few shows left. This Saturday at 5:30, the next Saturday at 5:30, and then the next Friday, the 23rd at 7 p.m. And Dave Attell will be on one of these shows. I do not know which one yet, but you can follow me on social media, and I put all the shows up and updates on the documentary series. And you just give a good idea for it, Todd. I like how you said something from nothing. I think that's a not a bad title for possibly the film. So I wrote that one down. Yeah. I like
Sorry,
that.
Jay, I came in late. Where are you? Like,
I'm in New York. I live in the Bronx, but the show is in Astoria, Queens.
Okay, well.
Yeah. So follow it, Sabrina. Maybe we can get out there sometime.
Jay, can you do a Zoom? Just do a Zoom, comedy show. So
A
I
Zoom
can
show?
attend.
Joseph, let's get that budget out and let's do a Zoom show for Sabrina. All right.
It wasn't my budget, but yeah, I'd be happy to.
Well, let's get that Friends budget out and let's do that show for Sabrina.
Thanks. That'd be great.
By the way, a friend just joined, Frank. How
Hi,
are you?
Frank.
You're the best, Frank. It's kind of over, unfortunately. You missed, but we're still all here. And to give a little wave, Jay has been our guest. He's fantastic. Wave. Jay, Frank is the best. In a nutshell, well, anyway, I'll let you know. Basically, he's very inspiring. And I just came up with a potential name for his series, his special, about how he created a something from nothing or out of nothing. And that is a live comedy show in a parking lot. Anyway.
Oh, I love it.
So Frank and everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to play my my goodbye music, which is, by the way, my favorite song, Dancing in the Moonlight. And I love all of you. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Jay.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mm.